Hi, thanks so much for joining us with APC Chats, where we basically work to spotlight people, voices, and opinions that deserve a platform and may not often get it. That said, feel free to join us in the conversation, following us at APC Collective on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Hi, I'm Sunday Vidal with APC, and we are here today talking with Heather Dopson from Godaddy. She has so graciously said yes to meet with us and tell us about herself and what she's doing over there. Hi, Heather.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm really happy to be in Texas.
You are a Texas girl.
I am through and through. I am a daughter of the Lone Star State.
Love that.
This is a little morbid, but I fly a lot and I don't love flying.
Yeah.
And so I always say, like, the moment we get to Texas, I'm okay. Whatever happens now, I'm all right.
Yeah, I'm home.
Well, and that's just kind of weird to think about.
Well,
as long
you
as
travel
it happens
a lot.
in Texas.
Yeah. Well, because, Texas, yeah.
There's a great Tanya Tucker song. Do you know the song?
No, I'm trying to think.
We're going to have to look it up.
Okay.
But it's when I die, just bury me in Texas.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. That's why I'm saying, like, it's kind of weird because as soon as we get to Texas borders, I'm like, whatever needs to happen, Like, I'm home. We're fine. My parents can find me. It'll be great. Yeah. That's so morbid and dark. But I live in that, like, fatalistic view consistently.
I feel the same way. I'm Arizona is my adopted home state. I've been in Arizona for almost 18 years. So it's my second home, and I really love Arizona. But you can't take the Texas out of a person.
No,
definitely out of a Texas girl, you cannot.
No.
Yeah.
Strong woman.
Yeah.
One of the things we've been hosting these chats, during a specific period where the city's abuzz with ideas and with new thinking and kind of challenges of old thinking, and so we wanted to host as many people as possible just to get their perspectives and include them in a conversation where not everybody gets to be celebrated or spotlighted. And one of the reasons I think Sunday wanted to have you join us is because the role that you play at GoDaddy and kind of leading social and cultivating a conversation in a community, even just talking about your backstory, like it's an obligation and a responsibility, and you do it with such goodness and a genuine desire to serve. And I think we just want to hear about, like, your journey, because you mentioned the military and then law enforcement, and that's kind of an interesting twist to get to GoDaddy.
Yeah.
So just
but lots of people are surprised to hear that because of what I do now. In my brain, the journey makes perfect sense, and especially retrospectively, right? Like, well, of course I ended up here. Of course. So when I was in high school, I grew up on a ranch, a quarter horse breeding farm, and I was always one of the guys. I'm an only child, but I have brothers, two guys who grew up on the ranch with me. One is older and one is younger, and so I've always considered them my brothers. When I was in high school, I ran around with this group of guys that were all going into the military, and I've always had this calling or desire to serve and to take care of people. And we talked a little bit before about the people pleasers, not in that way, not in the people pleasing way, but in, like, I just want to make sure that people are okay. We all have enough shit that happens in our lives. I just don't want people to have to go through that stuff. And I had an ROTC scholarship at Texas Tech. And I went to Texas Tech for a couple of semesters, and then I decided to enlist, much to my parents' chagrin, because I was going in as an officer and all of this, and I had just was like, I was ready to go. And also, I was 17 when I started college, and I went to a really small school. There were somewhere around 53 people in my graduating class. So when I walked into my first class at Texas Tech, there were more people in my class than there had been in my entire high school. And so there was this little bit of a shock to me. And I was ready, like, let me go. It was in 1991 when I enlisted, so right in the midst of Desert Storm. So my parents were, my dad was very supportive. My mom was supportive but terrified, and also was like what can we do to help you pay for school and all this stuff. I'm like, this has nothing to do with school. It has nothing to do with money. And I remember at a point in basic training, they went around the room and they asked why each of us joined. I was in the Air Force. They asked us why we joined the Air Force. And people were saying, I joined because of the college benefits, or I joined to travel the world, or I joined to get out of my little town. And I said, I joined because I'm an American, and people have lost their lives and shed blood in order for me to wake up every single day with the rights and privileges that I have. And the very least I can do is spend a portion of my life repaying that debt. And I firmly believe that, and I still believe that today. Like, let's honor the people who got us to where we are, whatever that means for you. Mm-hmm. It can be family, it can be heritage, whatever it is. So, had a great job in the military. I was a munitions specialist. That means I built bombs. Wow. Which, again, my dad loved. My mom was like, I don't want to hear any stories. I don't want to hear any of that. Very quickly, after training, was sent to the desert and spent a significant amount of time in the desert. And at the time, it was horrible. Like, you're in this really not great location, and it was before email and all of that kind of stuff. But my family and my friends were so great about sending me care packages, or my little cousins. All my cousins are much younger than I am, and they would send me like the funny papers from the newspaper and that kind of stuff. And I would write them letters, and it was this awesome way to keep in touch. And I originally had planned to stay forever in the Air Force. Like, I just felt like that was my purpose, and that was, contributing and helping. And when I was about, right in the midst of when you make the decision about whether you're going to re-enlist or not, my boyfriend was killed in a motorcycle accident. He was also in the Air Force, and I was gone when it happened, on an assignment. And it was a really freak thing that happened, and my commander thankfully was so nice to bring me back so that I could attend the funeral and do all that kind of stuff. And so that was my first. I'd experienced death before, but not in that capacity. Yeah. Young love and all of that stuff. And so that was a moment where I was like, okay, what do I really want to do? Wow. We're here for a very short period of time. And also it was really hard for me to be there because it happened on base, and for me to drive, right. To drive where it happened and all that kind of stuff. And so I made the decision to get out and go back to school, and that I wanted to go into law enforcement. I knew that I wanted to go in law enforcement because it's an extension of serving and protecting. My family, what is wrong with you? Nobody in our family is in the military. Nobody is in law enforcement. And so there was some struggle. And
you're like, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like,
that's why I'm going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just let me do it. And even my grandmother, who we talked a little bit about before, was just like, can't you go get a computer science degree or a business degree or something? I'm like, no, I'm going in law enforcement. This is important to me. So I became a cop in a little tiny town in New Mexico, Portales, New Mexico. Okay. And we had a very small, tiny department. While I finished school, I graduated at Eastern New Mexico University, and decided, I took a little vacation and then was like, where do I want to live? I hate cold weather. I can live anywhere I want. So I went to the library. I was in Florida at the time, went to the library, looked at jobs. I was like, oh, I'm going to move to Arizona. That's literally how I chose it. I'm like, I don't like snow. I'm moving to Arizona. Applied for a job with Tucson Police Department. Had to, go through the testing and everything, and got hired. And I moved to Tucson the week before I started. I had to ask my background investigator, where should I live? I didn't know the town at all. You ladies are from El Paso, so imagine moving to El Paso, but you don't know anything about El Paso. So had an amazing time and really, really loved being a cop. And I was really good at it. I worked undercover for a period of time. I love helping people. And in that moment, when you're a cop, you are with people at the worst moment of their lives for a lot of people. And And there are lots of, like, I could tell you all kinds of stories about that. But again, I had this, after doing that for a few years, I had this moment of, I'm ready to do something else, which is normal for people younger than me now, of like, okay, I'm going to move on to the next thing. But the way I was raised was, you go to school, you get a job, and you stay at that job for 25 or 30 years or until you die.
Right.
Whichever happens first.
We have those parents.
Yeah. And that's okay for you, for you, Mom.
Right.
But that's not, like, I've never, like, I can't see myself, like, doing the same thing for 20 years or 30 years. So I left law enforcement and got my real estate license. And everybody, oh man, my family was happy then, because, oh, you're a talker, you're amazing, you'll be amazing at it. I got my license. I hated it. I hated it so much. And it was at a time, it was 2006, so in the real estate industry in Arizona was hot. Like, really all you had to do was breathe and have your license, and you were selling houses. But I didn't enjoy, I felt like I was a taxi service or a shuttle service, driving people to houses where they were like, I hate the walls, I hate the floor, I hate, like, it was all this, like, hate. Where in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you realize that you're looking at a $300,000 house and you can afford to buy it?
Yeah.
Like, it was this. So I thought, okay, well, I've invested this money in getting my real estate license and building a relationship with the broker and these other agents and everything. So what can I do? And I noticed that a lot of the most successful realtors had software that they either weren't using or they didn't know how to use. And so there's several top producer and Wise Agent and even Infusionsoft, like, they were using this, or they were paying for it. They actually were paying for it, but they weren't using it. So I taught myself how to use each of the software platforms, and then went to the most successful agents and said, let me teach you how to use your software. And if you do this, you'll become more productive, you'll become more efficient, you'll make more money, and you can just give me a cut of each one of your commissions. And they're like, done.
That's awesome.
So I had like 5 or 6 realtors that were doing that eventually just said, I don't even want you to teach me, I just want you to do it. Just handle it. And then I said, there's this awesome thing called the internet. And you could actually be productively marketing yourself, not the properties, but yourself. And that was 2007, 2008, when I started talking about personal branding, and that I'm going to do business with you because I like you, not because you sent me a postcard in the mail.
Right.
You know? And then started learning more about social. Was very new. And I was doing online marketing for an international real estate company, and we had properties that were being built in Costa Rica. And I started a MySpace page for the properties. Like, Facebook didn't exist then. Twitter was around, Facebook wasn't. So we had a MySpace page. So when I say I'm an early adopter of using social from a business perspective, it's
very
legit.
early adopter.
Yeah, very early adopter. And so it's just been this, like, progression of learning the platform. It really has less to do with the technology and more about the people, how you're marketing, and the behavior. My degrees are in psychology and sociology, and so I believe that marketing is predicting and manipulating human behavior. And whether manipulating can have a negative connotation, but I don't mean it. Maybe I should
inspiring
say
human behavior.
Yeah, like guiding or compelling, that kind of thing. And so it's just really been this natural progression for me. And I was at a event where I was listening to a person talk about social, and somebody asked her a couple of questions, and they were asking specifically about Twitter, and she couldn't answer the questions. And so me being me, I raised my hand, and it was, can I give you an example of how we're using Twitter to market and to build community and all of this kind of stuff? And she said, yes, absolutely. And after that, I had 2 women physically grab me from behind and say, we want to hire you. And I said, no, I have a job. Because that's my mentality, right? Like, you have a job. Like, I have a job because I need stability and I need benefits and I need, right? Like, that's hammered into us. And they're like, no, like, the way you explained this and the way you broke it down, like, we need that. They each had successful businesses, but it was 2008, 2009. The economy is starting to tank. They had okay websites, but they weren't doing anything on social. And that in that moment is when my business was born.
Wow.
And it really was based on helping people. One of those women at the time was 67 years old, and she'd published a couple of books, and she wrote for the Phoenix Business Journal, but she hand wrote everything and then faxed it to her editor, and her editor would have someone type it up. Like, that's how, and I sat with her, sat right next to her, and taught her how to use Facebook. That was before Pages.
Wow.
It was just pure profiles, and taught her how to use Facebook and all of that kind of stuff. And it really has it's really grown out of that. And at every turn, if I just put people first, I've found that the universe delivers to me. And in those moments where I'm more selfish, or I do things where I feel like I have to do them as opposed to wanting to do them, it never ends up serving me. And so I really, we have a great tech scene in Phoenix, and I got very entrenched in the startup scene and the tech scene in Phoenix, and started doing a lot of social for a lot of tech companies, and found myself in a position at Infusionsoft. I didn't want a job. I don't really like having a job. J-O-B. Sunday watches my show, I think, so she knows that I have this phrase that I say all the time about a J-O-B. I like working in my pajamas. I like sleeping late. I don't,
So do we.
Yeah. Like I don't really want a job. But I was scrolling through my Facebook profile, or my Facebook newsfeed, and Infusionsoft is this tech company in Arizona where they had written this released this press release that said that they were building and they were hiring. They had a whole bunch of positions that were open. And my thought was, I know people who need jobs. I'm going to go look and see what jobs are available so I can be like, hey, Infusionsoft is hiring. It's a great local company, all this stuff. And I remember very distinctly, like, with my finger on the screen, like, looking down, and I see social media specialist, I think is what the title was, and this instantaneous feeling of, well, that's my job. Mm-hmm. Like, not, I think I'll apply for that, or maybe I should. No, it was, that is my job. Like, the universe created that job for me. And if do you guys know who Pam Slim is? Pam Slim, she's written some amazing books. Escape from Cubicle Nation is one of her books. And
thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
Wherever you are,
yeah.
You speak to all of our hearts
and
aspirations.
Yeah, and body of work. And her new book that she's working on is fantastic, too. She tells me, she's like, the universe didn't do that. You did that. Like, you created that. So I go to work at Infusionsoft. It's a great time. It only boosts my own personal brand. And I was at Infusionsoft for a few years. I leave. I go back to consulting, and I just keep finding myself in this same industry, this tech industry, but really drawn to small businesses and really drawn to helping entrepreneurs. And really, there's a story. There really is a story behind it. That I'm going to tell, and it'll be the first time that I've told it in public. Okay. And I may get in trouble, but I'm going to tell it because I feel compelled to tell it.
We have lawyers.
Yeah.
we can help.
Yeah. So
we got you.
Well, it's about my mom. So
okay. Yeah.
So I remember.
We have therapists.
Yeah.
We can help.
I love you, Mom.
We love you.
So
Mom.
I am like, I really, like, I had to search in my, like, why am I so, like, I want people to know, like, we evolve, like, we really do, like, we go through these evolutions, and you don't have to be stuck in what you're doing. And if you don't like what you're doing, then frickin' do something else. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not stuck in it, right? And so I did this little exercise in my head. We're like, where does this come from? And part of it is having experienced death so early on in my life, and multiple times. And just going, man, life is short. Like, do what you're going to do. Life is too short to live one day miserably. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I remembered a conversation that happened with my mom when I was 17. So I was a senior in high school, and my mom was unhappy. My mom and dad are married. They've been married for 44 years and happily married. But my mom was unhappy. My mom has been in the banking industry my whole life and has never loved the banking industry. Like, she wasn't like, when I grow up, I want to be a teller at a bank. Mm-hmm. Or a loan officer or whatever. She's worked her way up on a high school diploma, so I'm very proud of her. But we were having this conversation. She was unhappy and she was tired, and I was about to graduate, and I'm the only child. So, there's this, like, what am I going to do with my life kind of thing I think that moms go through. And I remember her being really unhappy and being emotional about it. And me telling her at 17, you can do anything you want to do. Like, you have limitless options. You're an American and you're a woman in America. Like, if you were a woman in another country, there's a lot of options you wouldn't have. You can do anything you want to do. You can quit your job. You can go back to school. You can do whatever it was that you thought you wanted to do when you were in high school or when you were a kid. And I remember very distinctly her saying to me, I'm too old to do anything else. And she was 37 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, that's where it comes from. Of seeing my mom being so unhappy and thinking that she was completely limited by her circumstances, or limited by her gender, or limited by her age, limited by the choices that she made, or her perceived mistakes that she made. And so that drives me. I want people to know, I don't care how old you are, young or old, like there's always an opportunity to do something else. And so that's where my passion for really helping small businesses, and that's where I want to help you lose your JOB and find your JOY. That's where that comes from.
That.
Yeah. Lose your JOB
Nice.
and find your JOY.
I just got that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Haven't had my coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
Right.
kind of incredible, and it speaks to, you lead social community and all things building from a social presence and customer support for GoDaddy.
Yeah.
And when you think about what GoDaddy is, it really helps people take their idea public. Like, it is the initial IPO for every idea.
Totally. Oh yeah, I love that. I'm stealing that.
Go for it.
stealing
You
that.
heard it here first.
Yeah. I'll give you
Um,
credit, but I guess that's not stealing it then.
but that's a powerful, and I think we even started our site with GoDaddy, and I referenced this earlier, like, it was, I wish I remembered his name, I don't, but I registered probably a few sites because he's like, do you have any other ideas that you want to make happen? And it's just that one question, and feeling very emboldened, and I
Yeah.
wasn't drinking, I wasn't caffeinated, it was just feeling very emboldened to, like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, because when I go in there and I'm like, we have that one and that one. I'm like,
There's
okay.
like a children's book.
Yeah.
But it's
There's
great.
another, but just feeling very empowered, and like someone was listening and someone believed, not my family, not a former client or former colleague, no one that had any interest in my past or my present, but believed in my idea to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, there's sales incentives, and I'm not going to dumb it down from that perspective,
Yeah.
but just the simple act of someone saying, and what else do you want to make happen?
Right. Yeah. I
Whoa.
love what is it that
Yeah.
what is your dream?
Yeah.
What is your goal? And let's take action. That's
Yeah.
that's the
And
that's
it's
the
one
component.
step. It's
Yeah.
one step of owning it.
Yeah,
Like-
let's take the action, because it's one thing to have those ideas or dreams or goals stuck in your head,
I know.
but it's that movement towards action
Yeah.
that makes the big difference. And that is that buying that domain,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a little more real, even though we all know that, like, I've lost count of how many domains I own, because I have that affliction too, where I'm like, oh my gosh, is that available? I'm buying it.
Yeah, it happens at dinner parties for
Yeah,
us, like
totally.
happy hours
Yes.
most often.
I'm on it.
Yeah. Well, that's
Get
when
it.
that's when you know that you're hanging out with like the right mindset, right? The entrepreneurs and the people who are compelled to take action. Like, I'm going to buy it right now. You guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but there are people out there who don't own any domains and who don't have any websites. And those are the people who I'm trying to get to, from my own personal agenda of helping the world find their JOY, and also from the perspective of GoDaddy, of being that initial place of, okay, this is where we go buy a domain, but it's also where I can host a website and I can get a website built. I can build my own website in 5 minutes, and I can build it from my phone. Of just, let's take massive action and let's get you online. Like, let's legitimize you.
Yeah.
And so the people who have those kernels of ideas, and I ask people, what, have you bought your domain yet? Mm-hmm. Do you know your domain name? No. Okay, well, let's talk about that. My Uber driver, on the way to the airport the other day, we were having the conversation. I always talk to my drivers, always.
Me too.
And he said, well, I'm starting a Chicago hot dog place. Like, okay.
Here in town?
In Phoenix.
Oh, no, yes,
In
Uber,
Phoenix,
yeah, okay. I was like, can I have his number, please?
Yeah, I know.
You can come over tonight for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Try out some products.
Yeah. And he said, and I said, so is it a brick and mortar? Is it a truck? He said, no, it's a cart. I said, perfect. Like, that's great. Like, that's startup.
Yeah.
Like, that is startup, right? Is
It's
a
hustle.
cart. Yes. He said, I also want to do catering, and I feel like having a cart is a way for me to, like, you know, I've already applied to some festivals. I'm waiting on some of my business licensing, and there's some stuff going on in Phoenix right now where restaurants are making it harder for food vendors to get licensed.
Awful.
And it's terrible.
Like, somehow they forgot they had a dream just because they
Yeah.
bought some tables and chairs.
Yeah. It's terrible. So we were talking about it. I said, okay, what's the name? What are you, like, are you just doing hot dogs? He's like, no, I'm doing Italian beef too. And I'm like, man, I need to know this guy.
That's the name.
Yeah. And
Sorry, Hector, cover your ears.
Now I know. I can just let it loose. And I said, so where are you at on social media? What are your plans? Have you bought your domain? Do you have a website? And he's like, I've started a Facebook page, and I'm just starting stuff. And I said, have you bought your domain? Have you bought your www dot whatever? And he said, no, I haven't bought it yet. And I said, you need to buy it. I said, it's going to be like $15, you know, like, go buy it so that you've got it locked down. Like, that needs to be your first step, because that's where you own it. Like, you actually own that. You don't own the stuff that's on Facebook or on Twitter. And I have people contact me regularly because of a blog post that was written, I think 3 or 4 years ago. A company lost their Facebook page. Like, it just disappeared. And I had some connections, and I, you know, helped. It was a huge company and a huge page and everything. And so when people lose their Facebook page, they search and my name comes up. And so they send me messages on Facebook, like, do you know somebody at Facebook that can help us? So I was telling him, like, you don't own what lives there. So you need to build a website. And I talked to him about the new website builder at GoDaddy. And I said, you don't need to be a coder. It's a way to get you online really quickly. And of course I left in my card, and I wrote the information on it, and, you know, and I was like, I'm happy to help you. Like, just email me or call me, and I'll walk you through that. And so those are the, like, I live for those moments, and for those moments where I want him to take action. Like, there's a moment you have to release it, right? Like, you have to give them the power. I've given you the tools, I've given you the power, and you have to take the action to make it happen. But when I get those follow-up emails of, I bought my domain, or I started, even if I, you know, started my Facebook page or whatever, like, oh my gosh, that brings me such joy.
Is there,
awesome.
and we're talking a little bit about, like, the role and responsibility of being social on a company's behalf, and doing it with service, and the way that you've always pursued service. And I think that's your brand is, you know, every opportunity you're going to help someone get further.
Yeah.
And we were talking yesterday with a really interesting artist, a young kid, and I still call you guys kids because I'm kind of older. and it's like, okay, so they're all starting their businesses, and I want them to. And I want them to succeed, and if I can be part of it and helping them get further, then that's what I'm going to help do. Because that's where I find my joy. Like, I'm good at assembling a team, and they're and helping nurture them so that they can take care of and build a business. But this guy is like, I've registered the site, I did my DBA, and it's like these young, you know, recent grads that are trying to figure out how to find their JOI. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, so they have the basics. And I told them, let's get on a conference call, and I'm going to walk you guys through the 5 things that I learned when I was doing my thing. And it's like, okay, here's Rocket Lawyer. You need a lawyer, and this is why you're going to need a lawyer versus here's what you're going to need. And so I'm like, does GoDaddy invest in any, and maybe I need to look at the blog, but like the 5 questions or the 5 essential things to, after the site, here's what.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, we have an amazing cadre of guest writers for the GoDaddy blog. The Garage, it's called The Garage. And so there's always great content on there, and definitely addressing those things like what next. But when I started at GoDaddy, I was told I had an initial project, and it was start a weekly broadcast. And that's all the direction I got. Like, start a weekly broadcast. We don't care where you do it or how you do it or what, like, just start a broadcast. Okay. So, and GoDaddy had done Hangouts, Google Hangouts, Hangouts on Air in the past. Like, it's funny that as an employee at Infusionsoft, I was a guest on the GoDaddy Google Hangouts talking about customer service through social. So I was like, okay, well, let me get my feet wet at GoDaddy a little bit. Let me figure out the direction I want to take this. I already knew that we were going to do Facebook Live. Like, that's it. Like, we're going to at least start it on Facebook Live, and we'll see where it goes from there. So as I was going to all these events and people were finding out that I worked at GoDaddy, and they would say either they hate GoDaddy for whatever reason, and I let people tell me the reason because I want to know, because maybe I can educate you a little bit about our CEO is awesome. We have a new CEO, and all these kinds of things. But more so, I get people who say, oh my gosh, I love GoDaddy. I've been a GoDaddy customer for 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, like this long period of time. And I say, okay, awesome. So what products and services at GoDaddy do you use? And they say, oh, about all my domains there. Okay. Do you use our hosting? Just like I asked you, Hector. Do you use our hosting? No. Do you use our email? No. Do you use our email, GoDaddy email marketing? No. Do you use our small business accounting software? I didn't even know you had that.
Yeah.
Do you use our website builder? Do you use our managed WordPress? Like, no. So people know GoDaddy as the place to go buy a domain. And that's it. So they're not aware of all of these other things that we can do to help you launch your business. So it was like, well, that's it. Like, that's the topic of my show is what are all these other things that need to happen in order to legitimize your business. Just because you buy a domain, that doesn't make you a business, right? So my idea was I'm going to bring on these guests who talk about that. So I've had an attorney on the show, and I've had user experience designers on the show, and people who build websites, so that we can talk about, if you're not going to pay somebody to do it, here, let us give you some tips on how you can be doing it. I've had Pam Slim on the show who talks about leaving your job and how you want to prepare for leaving your job and all of that. And so it's all designed to help you do the thing after you bought the domain. And so
excellent.
That's great.
So that's why, and it's funny, I was struggling with the name. Like, I couldn't figure out, I already had the concept and I already had guests lined up, but I could not figure out the name. And I was at a conference with my friend Nicole Hudson. I was at Digital Crossroads in Louisville, Kentucky. And we're walking down the hallway and we're talking about this. And I said, I just can't figure out, I don't know what to name it, because it didn't have to be GoDaddy branded. And we have GoDaddy has the manifesto of kick-ass. And so I was like, maybe it's like kick-ass, something like, it was not coming, and it was very frustrating for me. And we're just walking down the hallway and Nicole goes, beyond the domain. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like this, the angels are like, I'm like, that is it. That's the name of the show, because it is.
Now what?
Now what? Yeah. Once you bought the domain, now what do you do? Yeah. So that's a big part of what I'm doing right now, is building out this live broadcast in a way that serves that. Okay, what else do you do? What are the 5 things? I would love to have you on the show, actually.
I was going to offer.
And talk, absolutely.
We give away advice all the time, and especially because, after being at large agencies and starting careers at large agencies and being at one of the biggest, and I think, because of their size and because of who they attract the best, and feeling trained, that there's so many people who need that counsel but don't have those budgets. And if we could be a part of giving the same level of excellent counsel for not that cost, we're in.
Yes, 100%. And that's what I'm doing, is just let's make this show the source of truth, and the place for people to go to ask those questions, or to learn that stuff. And I love live, because I love the interaction and the engagement, and the questions that people ask helps me fuel who is going to be my next guest, or what else do we need to talk to, and just my everyday conversations. We have to take ourselves out of what we do every day, because we know our thing, right? Whatever our thing is, we know it, and we forget that people don't know our thing, right? When I say, like, people don't, not everybody owns a domain, and not everybody owns a website or runs a website. Like, something as simple as people not realizing that you can own multiple domains, and you probably should, and all direct them to one website. So I
didn't even know that.
Yeah. So the example is on the show last week, I had a website designer and we talked about hometownk9.com. Okay. And the domain name is K, the letter K, and the number 9, hometownk9.com. And so I said, Hometown K9 should also buy Hometown K9, the word spelled out, and some variations and all of that, and direct it to one website. And she was watching the show, and she said, you can do that, you know? And I'm like, yes, you can't. Not only can you, but you should.
Do that, yeah.
And I love action. And so within 5 minutes, she commented during the show, hometownk9.com has just been purchased. Like, that's she awesome. Bought it, nice. You know?
That's
so
awesome.
It's those little things that we know. And so we forget that other people don't know those things. Yeah. And so providing that information, I'm crazy, crazy passionate about doing that because I want people to find that success, however they define it.
Which is so, I feel, the next generation, you guys see that more and more, that there is a different way of climbing the ladder.
Yes.
Right? Whereas we just had intentions to serve or to get a good job, and some of our mothers and us. So it was about find a really good job that you can stay with them forever. And so breaking off the path was somewhat foreign for our time. But who's coming up and who's coming next, they're motivated by things that money can't buy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a freedom to self-express and freedom to self-explore and a freedom to kind of push boundaries or perceived boundaries. So I have, and you've been saying it all week, and like the future is going to be okay because of who gets to come next. But you guys are responsible for empowering small businesses. You've done it for us.
Definitely.
I love that. I love to hear that.
What would you want to tell the next gen?
Oh, man.
Of thinkers and creators.
Yeah.
And builders.
You're so right about the next gen, both millennials and Gen Z, that they're already have the natural mind state of, well, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just, why not? I want to back up a little bit because we were talking about, you said the kids, like, you know, the young people, early 20s or late teens coming to us and asking advice. I'm like, even before that, I have a friend whose 10-year-old daughter started a business. And I talked about it on my show last week because I was like, this is my entrepreneur of the week. And she's 10 years old. Not only has she started a business, she has a philanthropy outreach so that $1 out of every sale goes to feed my starving children. And within a month of starting, she donated $80. She donated $80 to feed my starving children. Now, $80 to a 10-year-old is a lot of money.
Yeah.
To us, it's not a lot of money.
It's 2 games.
Yeah. But to donate it to feed my starving children, it feeds a kid for a year.
Wow.
And so talking about that, so youth getting involved also, not just the 20-year-olds and the 19-year-olds, but youth, whatever generation that is, I don't even know. Are we out of letters now?
I just call them next gen. They're all next gen.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I want to say to everybody, but especially to next gen who may still have some of the residual family stuff or people stuff, the dream killers, right? They don't mean to kill our dreams, but they're like, no, you can't. You need to get a job. Yeah. You need to have benefits. You need to, all those things. What I want to say is this is how you handle that is you say to someone, I accept your love for me, but I reject your fear.
Love that.
Their fear is their own, and let them have that fear. That's for them to deal with, but you can accept their love and concern, but you reject their fear. So, yeah.
That's really good.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been great. I mean, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that you said yes.
Yeah.
Because of Dennis Yu.
Yep.
Introducing us to Isaac Irvin. And then him talking about personal branding and how that's been a real struggle. That's been a real struggle for us.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because I know, especially her, she likes to just do the work. She just likes to get it done.
Yeah.
And she likes to make her client and spotlight the client.
Yeah.
And that's been, so hearing Isaac in that story.
Yeah. And Isaac, oh my gosh, I have so much love in my heart for Isaac. And to watch him progress too. He's been at Godaddy for a little over 10 years, but has been on our team and has been in that role for just a few months. And
Wow.
you want to talk about somebody like stepping in and stepping up and really putting in the work. Like, he is definitely a shining example of that. And then I introduced him to Dennis not that long ago.
Really?
Like maybe 3 months ago.
Wow.
And we sat in a room, Dennis and a couple of his people, Logan, and Isaac and I were in there. And I've heard all of this stuff from Dennis, right? And Dennis is like cracking the whip on me of certain things. And he's like, you know what you got to do. But I remember just sitting in that room and watching Isaac. And at a moment, he's like his eyes got really big, and it really finally clicked with him of what he needed to do for his role, what he does at GoDaddy and in his life and what he wants to do and all of that kind of stuff. And he went to work. I mean, he implemented everything that Dennis had suggested, and to really watch him go big has been amazing. And I'll tell you, and Isaac won't care if I tell you this, that it's been uncomfortable for him. And we have conversations. He and I ride to work together often, and we have conversations about this, of like pushing through that discomfort, or stop thinking that you're not worthy.
Will you pick me up on your way to work?
Yeah.
Like, I need to be part of those discussions.
Yeah, I know. Maybe Isaac and I just need to start doing like Facebook Live from the car.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Truly,
yeah.
like nitty gritty, make sure the passenger is the one who's recording.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. He's always the passenger because he loves my car. So
and watching Isaac, you wouldn't get that from him.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get, and I'm sure it's uncomfortable for everybody, at some point, but just the way how comfortable he is on camera and how comfortable he is speaking, you don't see that.
Well, and I love, like the why video. So Dennis talks about doing your 30-second why video. And Isaac shot his first video, and it was like 4 minutes long and, had to cut it down, and then he cut it down and it was a couple minutes, and he brought it to me, and I was like, let's distill it a little bit. Like, I get it. I get what you're trying to do, but you're still being very corporate about it. Like, this is why, and this is meant to evoke emotion and compel to action. And so we got to really distill that down. And he did that. He put in the work. But then he also wrote a blog post talking about that and saying, because that's the whole thing. When you tell people, hey, I want you to do a 30-second why video, people are like, what?
Yeah.
No, I don't, my makeup's not right, or I need a haircut, or how quickly can I lose 40 pounds?
Cool. It's called Cool Sculpting. I've already researched it.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Can we do it by tonight?
Yeah, definitely.
Too late. I already did my why video because she got back from the conference and made us all do them.
Yes, I love that.
We also did the modules.
Yes.
We bought, I guess, podcast equipment.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that conference?
That was February 9th,
Yeah.
10th, and 11th, I think. Yeah.
So why
Yeah.
videos, modules for everything we know.
Yeah.
Videos for everybody we work with.
The action.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
She's
And
the-
Dennis will love that. Like, it's amazing.
She's a firecracker.
I love it.
No, I mean, but it was because of that.
Well, and it's Isaac and Dennis. Like, listen, Dennis, I have so, like, Dennis is amazing.
It's taken me still how many weeks, and I still can't articulate what that conference, and it's like, I have great people in my life, great, really smart mentors. Like, my sister I look up to her because she is gifted with wordsmithing. I mean, she's just gifted. But I still have trouble articulating what that conference did, and just being around Dennis.
I don't know if you'll ever be able to articulate it, because I often have trouble with that too.
Yeah.
I've known Dennis for about 6 years, I think. And I tell people all the time, like, you have to meet Dennis. And he's not that well known. Like, he's not going to draw crowds at South by. But the people that he's working with, and the places he's going, he's impacting. He has impact. He's not impressing, he's impacting.
I love that.
And that's the difference, is that, like, there's a true impact. And part of it is that taking action. The other part of it is Dennis really cares.
Yeah.
He cares. And I think that's a big differentiator. I talk a lot about practitioners versus personalities, because I see a lot of personalities getting on stage or getting all the attention or doing all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, they don't care.
I think that's, if there's hesitancy to be that, it's because I've seen it. I've paid for it. I pay for it on behalf of clients. And I feel like the last thing I would want to be known for is surface. And I'd rather the work speak for itself, or I'd rather the clients I mean, we have clients that, contribute to birthday videos or send us their resumes that they think are about to get cut, or I've made justifications for clients so that they don't get cut. And it's like the last thing I'd ever want to do is dumb it down to a talking point when there's so much more meat behind delivering or serving.
The fact that you recognize that means that you're already of service. You're not surface. So that is already a differentiator for you. So no matter what you did, you can still do the work and you can still show that. But whatever you do, when you have those talking points, that love and that passion is behind it. And that is what shines through, undoubtedly. And people know the difference. We talked about that a little bit yesterday on my panel of like, recognize the bullshit. And somebody said, well, how do you recognize? And two of us on the panel said,
It smells.
It smells.
It's really easy.
It
smells from a mile away.
You already know.
Yeah.
And stop buying into the hype of like, this person knows everything. And, but then when you get there and you've spent the money and you're like, why didn't you
How do I get out of here?
How do I, You know how you get out? You leave.
Yeah. Just walk up.
I'm going to place to everything.
Yeah. I leave. That was a learning moment for me. I spent the money on this. But yeah, just based on that you already know that you recognize that, you'll never be that,
No, she
the
won't.
surface shiny.
Mm-mm.
You're shining from the inside. And that's a completely different type of brilliance.
Well, and then I also have oily skin. So like that there is shine, it's self-made.
Hey, we work with
not to be
whatever we
loved
got,
on,
right?
But I think I wanted to, in the spirit of service, and because I think even our mentors or my mentor growing up, my first internship, Carol Thompson of the Thompson Group, she's never leave a table without asking how you can help. And so I'm not going to let you leave this table without saying, is there anything we could do for you in your journey with your current gig, with your aspirations of what's next?
This is always interesting when people do this to me, because my natural,
right,
maybe it's not natural, my learned response is, nope, I'm good. Right? I don't need any help. I don't need you.
I got this.
I got this.
That strong Texas woman.
Yeah. And I think that's my learned response. But I think my natural or instinctual response is for my brain to go, okay, let me think about who I'm serving and how what we do together or how the community that I'm serving can benefit from our relationship. What I want your help with is to continue to share the stories of the people who don't get shared. Because there are so many of them that are so good and so much better than the bullshit that we're baffled by or dazzled by on stage or on shows or whatever. And so sharing those stories and helping people achieve the level of success that they want, however they define success. Like that's truly what I want to see.
Awesome. I'll continue.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for joining.
Totally, completely my pleasure.
Hi, thanks so much for listening to us at APC Chats. Hopefully you walk away with some additional perspective or insight that you didn't have before. That said, if you want to continue the conversation, please do so following us at APC Collective on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks so much.